leave only the details for us in 2 minutes.
Okay, so thank you very much. So the House of Representatives has commenced an investigation into the affairs of the Nigerian National Housing Fund, specifically to investigate allegations that there have been non-remittances of contributions since 2011, and then the non-utilization of funds that have been accrued over times also since 2011. Now, it must be pointed out that the National Housing Act was enacted in 1992, and I dare say that its provisions may not be or are unlikely to be in tandem with our current realities. So the House of Reps investigation is to find out if those allegations of non-remittances are correct, and also to find ways of strengthening the National Housing Act so that Nigerians who contribute money to the National Housing Fund can get some sort of support in acquiring their own homes and houses. Now, it bears pointing out that the monies that have been contributed over time in the past cannot readily meet the demands or the desires of the Nigerians who contribute, because when you apply for a mortgage, you're told to bring about 30%. Now, 30% in today's reality, where the cost of all the building materials has significantly increased, is a lot of money, and it's a tough ask. And when they pull together all the accrued contributions, it barely scratches the surface. So this is a welcome development, and I do hope that at the committee understand why the funds having accrued so far have not been utilized, and will come out with a stronger and a better National Housing Act.
Thank you very much, Mr. C. That's done already. We head on to Gbubemi this morning as we grab a copy of this next headline from the Nation newspaper, where we hear the federal government has been urged to tackle medicine insecurity. And that's what the Association of Hospital and Administrative Pharmacists of Nigeria are calling for.
Okay, so the national president of the Association of Hospital and Administrative Pharmacists of Nigeria is the one who's made that call. And essentially, he's defined medicine insecurity as the scarcity of essential drugs in the public healthcare sector. Interestingly, he's linked part of the non availability of those essential drugs to the exodus of pharmacists to Western countries, so essentially Japan, and he cited a multitude of reasons that have encouraged pharmacists to leave the country, including poor implementation of the drug revolving fund scheme, prevention of pharmacists from providing direct pharmaceutical care to patients, outright refusal by the Federal Ministry of Health and the chief executive officers of hospitals to implement the newly approved call duty allowances, an entry point for pharmacists with a Doctor of Pharmacy degree, and then also unfavorable working conditions. I also suspect, however, that one of the key reasons behind the scarcity of essential drugs would also be linked to the forex situation. Comparatively, many Nigerian public hospitals would offer drugs made in Nigeria. So let's not even talk about the fact that imported drugs are way costly, out of the reach of the average person. Now, the cost of production, we need to factor that in. The fact that some of the inputs into these pharmaceutical drugs, would also need to be imported, even though they are made in Nigeria, is also a consideration. So there's that cost which is going up. This is not to say that the federal government, the Ministry of Health, in charge of the public health centers, hospitals, and clinics, has been up to the task with ensuring that those drugs are widely available across all the hospitals. But it's just an important consideration to show probably one of the challenges that they're experiencing. I'm not quite sure what the state of funding is for the hospitals with consideration for buying the drugs, but this is definitely a pointer. So if we're suffering forex issues across all sectors of the country, this is just also another area where we're suffering forex issues. But one of the things I would like to say is, I believe critically healthcare, education, transportation, those are like key sectors of the economy, and as much as possible, the government should ensure, that they provide funding for all of these areas. So, how it is where the average person probably cannot even afford to go to a private hospital. So they have no recourse than to go to a public hospital. So if they go to the public hospitals and they can't find the drugs that they need, then there's problem.
Mm.
So the federal government should, as much as possible, try and give, or the Ministry of Health should prioritize, provision of drugs for the public health centers, whilst also addressing the considerations of the pharmacists, because that is also key.
Well, thank you so much, Gbubemi, for that elaborate explanation on that reaction. Why there's seeming to be the spate of insecurity now seem to be across all our lives, all facets of our lives right now. Like I mentioned earlier on in the show when I was opening up, it just seemed to security, to education. It just goes on and on. And the next thing you want to hear is declare state of emergency. They just fell short of saying declare state of emergency on medicine.
The truth of the matter is that practically all of the sectors of Nigeria need to be under a state of emergency. But well.
So, Mr. C, we get to you with this next one. The Guardian newspaper, we expect you to guide us through this headline also, just as you did earlier on. Let's see this one. It says from the Guardian newspaper, subsidy removal. Governor Obaseki of Edo State laments federal government poor response to effects of policy on Nigerians. That's what Governor Obaseki is saying. Why is he crying when he should also be part of the system?
Okay, thank you, Mas. So the governor of Edo State was addressing journalists in Benin City, and he made the following remarks that the current administration at the center seemed to not have all the ideas given its removal of the fuel subsidy program. Yes, there was some politics involved in what he was saying because he's from a different party. But if you strip away the politics, he does have some valid points. Now, what are those valid points? This current administration was very quick to announce the removal at the end of the fuel subsidy program as it was practiced then. However, it has been not as quick in announcing measures to deal with the shock that arose following the cancellation of the fuel subsidy program and also the managed float of the naira against the US dollar and other currencies. So inflation has increased. It was always increasing anyways, and I think for the past 15 to 24 months, inflation has increased month on month. Now, we're all living witnesses to the fact that it has become increasingly harder to live in Nigeria. Cost of living have gone up substantially. Cost of foodstuffs, cost of transport, cost of healthcare, just name it. Even housing, shelter, everything has gone up. Now, the federal government has announced certain measures, including the Student Saving Bank, which it says will start in September. We've heard about a 5 billion naira palliative fund, which has been given to each governor of the state, each governor of a state across the Federation and the FCT. Why the monies were given to the governors as opposed to paying into the accounts of the beneficiaries, it's a question only the current administration should answer through its appointed spokespersons. Now, the reality is this. There's no, for some Nigerians, there isn't a lot of confidence that the current administration fully has its hand on the plow and really knows what to do to absorb the shock of the removal of the fuel subsidy program and the managed float of the naira. And it appears as if, in a sense, they're just trying one option after the other, hoping that one option will click. Now, beyond all of this, what is the plan for taking Nigerians out of this situation? What we've heard is you have to endure for a bit, that things will get tougher before they become better. But there are no milestones to measure these declarations.
Okay.
And then finally, there's a class of Nigerians that are extremely vulnerable, and these are the old and aged people who can no longer physically work. We have the young ones. And if they're dependent on the active group who are finding it extremely difficult to survive, it portends very interesting times for Nigeria going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. C. And that's in reaction to the headline from this newspaper here. That's the Guardian saying subsidy removal of Obaseki laments federal government poor response to effect of policy on Nigerians. In addition to what he said, according to the paper reporting here, he has assured the people of Edo State that for us in Edo, we would not abandon you. We don't like the word palliative because it is deceitful as we would rather use the word support. We would support those who are already victims of this policy measure. That said, I head on straight to Gbubemi. Gbubemi, this I would like you to take us through this paper this morning with this one coming in from the Vanguard newspaper is what you have before you. UK pledges enhanced synergy with Nigerian army. That's according to the Vanguard newspaper. Could this have been, is this the first time we're having this synergy, or is this one of several statements after a visit? And then after that, we ask, were we supposed to be in synergy with the UK before now? I'm just asking.
Okay, so the Nigerian army has always been closely related with the British army. Understanding that even pre-independence, the British who colonized us, were very influential in training the Nigerian army, and a lot of Nigerian army officers have received training in the UK. So it's not really a new partnership or relationship per se. This was just a visit by the United Kingdom Minister of State for Armed Forces and Veterans to the new Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, as a form of introduction. This is really customary in terms like this, where you have visits from parties that you directly relate with, and they come to introduce themselves when there's a new sheriff in town. So over the years, we've benefited from training, exposure to missions, access to equipment, and things like that. With the UK, hopefully this will continue. So this was more like them also trying to say, we're here for you. Keep relating with us. What wasn't said was, we know that there are other people that you may relate with, but we want you to remember that we are here. So don't go with those other people, stick with us, that sort of thing. Because if you look across the sub-region, we can see how many West African countries, are aligning. We can see where many of them are aligning.
Why do I have a feeling you are just shying away from mentioning Russia in trying to explain this story? Just go ahead and say what
So exactly, they don't want us to go with Russia. That's my understanding. That's my belief, rather.
So I have to beat it out of you then.
Something like
that. All right, thank you so much, Gbubemi. But then let's let you know you can come into the conversation at this time now on the platform 0809 444 0981. Expect the messages to pour in again. 0809 444 0981. So where do we go to? Let's see where we pick up the messages from now. Let's see. This one here is asking, what's your name? Chima from Surulere. Good morning, Smooth FM. I weep solely for Nigeria. I weep whenever I remember how people were disenfranchised during the elections. People are now talking of ministerial and commissioner appointments. Take it or leave it. Nigeria is, well, we must be positive even on the Thursday morning. Chioma, I've seen your message and it's been sent. I don't know how you feel to get the headlines this morning, but it's been sent. But I hope you have it there. I see you've gotten it out from the emojis you sent across. So what's this next one here? Come on, the message. Okay, let's take this one from Linda from Yaba. It says NHS, for a long time, a decent house cost more than the NHS 15 million naira offering. Mr. C just took that word right out of you. So that explains why many people can't take mortgages, i.e., even you, Linda from Yaba, can't even get a mortgage and to get at least something, a roof, like they say, a shelter secured. Let's get Adebayo Olatunbosun. Your analyst is how did you get that? Let's see. It says misinforming Nigerians concerning the subsidy removal. No, it's Buhari's administration that removed subsidy because there was no provision for it in the 2023 budget for Tinubu's administration to run with. Adebayo from Ajuwon. So respond to that, Mr.
Okay,
C.
so very quickly, the Buhari administration rightfully made provision for the fuel subsidy only until June, but left the decision as to whether to continue it beyond that point to the incoming current administration. So in effect, the position in law is that the Buhari administration did not end it. It is this current administration that ended it.
Okay. All right, so the legal pendulum begins to swing now. Let's see. Godwin Bagad from Bagada says, Governor Obaseki that has a petty good that has pretty good ideas. What has he achieved in Edo State going 8 years now? Mm, mm, okay. Next, I see Yinka Bolu. Okay, he keeps eluding me right now, but let's see this next one here. Okay, someone. This is more like an appreciation for Mr. C, and your name not included. Okay, Yinka Bolu. Ah, Mr. C. The federal government's recent moves were inevitably and unavoidable. Inevitable. We have been living beyond our means as a nation for too long, and we need to face the reality. It is not about experimenting with different options, but about doing what is necessary to sustain our desired way of life. Mr. C, we have to accept the hard truth and take responsibility. Why is that so hard, Mr. C, for you?
Okay, so let me quickly respond. Yinka, I like Yinka because he always listens and he understands issues. Yes, we had to get to this point where we're living beyond our means. What I refer to as trying multiple options is the response of the federal government to dealing with the aftershocks of the measures they've announced. Did we have to remove the fuel subsidy as was presently practiced? Certainly. Did we have to manage the float of the Naira? Yes, and I dare say we haven't even done it fully or completely. So these are measures that have to be taken. What I'm referring to is the reaction of the government. It's like they're, I don't want to say they're gambling. I'll just say they're continuing to try their luck and hoping that one measure
No, but in
hits the
defense,
jackpot.
now, building up of what you've said, now that they've tried it, but they've not, isn't it in consideration of what the full impact of the implementation would be? That's why they're not even going full swing into, some of these measures.
I suspect that some of these measures they hadn't fully come up with programs or measures to deal with the aftershocks. Yes, there was a clear and present need to terminate the problems now, but they hadn't fully comprehended or actualized their responses to the effects of removing those things. Okay. And I think that process is still ongoing, but they need to remember that Nigerians are in acute pain right now. They're in government, they're shielded, the expenses are borne by the government, so they may not understand or feel what the ordinary Nigerian is feeling.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. C. So it's more like as the ship is sailing, we paint, we service the engine as it's sailing. That's what it is because we can't hold the ship at port because the ship must leave the port, whether we paddle as we get along to get the engine running. Mr. C, this next headline goes to you now. It says, please set up special squad for schools protection. That's according to the Punch newspaper.
Okay, so thank you, Mas. So the Nigeria Police Force under the new Inspector General Police has announced the formation of a special protection squad for schools. Now, this is a resulting consequence of various schools having children abducted from their premises over the past 2 or 3 years. Now, this is a very good measure and on paper, brilliant. Now, the story doesn't say when, but it says soon. Now, there are a few things I want to believe the Inspector General Police has considered and is addressing. One, the Nigeria Police Force, even before the announcement of this special squad, was undermanned. They had low numbers, right? Two, we have now seen repeatedly over the years IGPs coming in and saying there are too many policemen attached to politically exposed persons and that they need to reduce that. And in effect, this current IGP has withdrawn supposedly policemen attached to non-essential persons or non-essential duty and send them back to the police force. Whether that was actually done as opposed to a declaration remains to be seen. Now, given the geographical nature of Nigeria, especially in the northeast and the northwest, do we have enough boots on ground there to guard the schools? And when we're speaking of a protection squad, how many police officers are they looking to guard each school? One of the abductions in the northwest, we heard stories of how about hundreds or more of these terrorists invaded the school with lorries and everything and abducted hundreds of school children. Now,
tells you that you cannot even police every square meter of this country.
Correct. So it's interesting to note that they maintain they will use kinetic and non-kinetic measures to prevent and stop these attacks from happening. Now, I'm not sure you can totally prevent a crime from happening because even in the developed world, you cannot stop every crime. But when a crime is committed, you should be in a position to bring the perpetrators to book. So let's hope also they will get funding for this funding in terms of allowances, funding in terms of vehicles, funding in terms of ammunition, and the right number of personnel. Because if we don't address any of these issues, this would be at best another declaration for the Hall of Records.
Okay. It's time to get the listener in at this hour also to let them know they can be part of the conversation, reacting to any of the headlines we've treated so far on the just send a message onto the platform 0809 4440981 0809 4440981. The messages are coming hard and fast. Let's get over to Idima Puza. Okay, let's begin from Idima Puza from Surulere. Since 2015, Naira has been continued falling without rising. Boko Haram and bandits have continued kidnapping and killing Nigerians. We have been moving from one hardship to another. Hunger is in the land. Who will restore our hope? And that's just a rhetorical question from Idima Puza from Surulere. And next, I find this one here from Tonye from Magodo saying, "Good morning, freshly pressed. I think we need to be crystal clear is that the federal government and the system of government, one is living beyond their means." Quick question: how many people do you know in your lives that are actually living beyond their means? Not many, I'm sure. However, I'm certain you can name many honorables who are. And he says, it's insane. Tayo comes up this morning. It's good to hear from you, Tayo. And he says, I don't think the IGP needs to direct or create a new formation for school protection because we are overwhelmed with officers chasing some students in the name of Yahoo Yahoo and other silly motives. And I will go over to this one coming in from King Joe from Surulere. Regarding to fuel subsidy, actually, it's like the federal government ran out of solutions due to not being ready for Niger people, but only all energy on how to win election. I'll pause here and go to Gbubemi because this story it broke yesterday and it's still causing ripples out there, and it's Lagos-centric story. Lagos, so we must go into this one. It comes from the Daily Post newspaper. Lagos Assembly confirms 22 Sanwo-Olu's commissioner nominees reject 17. So it seems it's not always a stamp, go take a bow. At least one assembly as Lagos has shown the way again now. Walk us through this story.
Yes, so for me that was quite that was quite interesting because that's about 40 something percent, of the nominees that were rejected. It tells about the governor, in my opinion, in some sort of way. So the Lagos State of Assembly had put together a committee, an ad hoc committee headed by the chief whip, to screen these nominees before they were brought to the House. And then a voice vote was taken on each nominee to determine whether they would be, whether they will be confirmed or not. Interestingly, looking at the list of those who were not confirmed, we see the names of some people who were commissioners in the last administration,
Yes,
and also appointed government officials. So one would have assumed that these were tested and trusted already because they should have had some sort of track record. Unfortunately, the assembly didn't give any reasons as to why they didn't confirm these people, which may lead us to assume that it was probably for performance reasons. That's the only logical thing I can think of.
Oh, Gbubemi. Okay, before Mr. C reacts, let's even how Mr. C, you're going to jump on this one. A professor, Abayomi, the former health commissioner, was not confirmed. Okay, all right, please.
This Lagos State House of Assembly, they are jokers. These commissioners were passed by the previous assembly. There is no material in the public domain suggesting that they have not performed. We look at Aki Abayomi, the Commissioner for Health. We look at Odushote.
Olalere.
Yeah, he's been pioneering very nice moves in the power sector, especially since electricity was moved to the concurrent list. We then look at Mr. Egube, who's been managing the economy. And I'm thinking, for the love of everything good under the sun, what are they on about?
The woman who in charge of works and all of that, that's Engineer Ramide. I mean, well, it's not for me to make cases, but I'm just saying.
I'll say something here on air, right? Give it a few days, you'll confirm these guys. These same guys that were supposedly denied will be confirmed.
Okay, thank you so much. And so that's where we get to wrap it up. But let's go over to the messages as we close up now. Oloninua from Agodo GI says, good morning. The new measure being proposed by the IGP to protect schools is another experiment, and it is bound to fail, as there is no way the police can muster the required manpower to secure all schools in the country. Next comes Ian saying, this government is just trying very hard to patronize us, but it seems not to be working. From 8K palliative to bags of rice to 36 states to police protection for schools, but they're living in luxury on public funds and still asking Basis to make sacrifices. They should try harder, a little harder, he says. Next comes Victor. Good morning, team. The money a country does not spend on books, that's education, it will spend it on bullets. That's relating to insecurity. Dadox says they didn't deliver their words during election. That's reacting to the Lagos story now. So that's what he thinks. Dadox feels. You see how the governor had to sweat it out to get the second term.
All these guys are technocrats.
Okay. So look, Mr. C, a technocrat at some point. I remember this morning as I was heading to the office, a name kept coming to my mind. She was a minister at the federal level during the Jonathan era. Brilliant policies. She was in charge of economy, digital issues, Omobolaji. Honestly, and I was just thinking, where is she now? But you see, so the accusations against that lady back then was that she was not seen at what level, she wasn't playing it. So you see the problem here. Competence, you have competence, you don't have political experience. Olabode from Surulere says, good morning. And he says, I guess the nominees rejected may be due to Baba Sokwe. That's how we wrap it up.
Where's that?
Father said that.
But
for those who somebody that's the this is what has been said. Baba Sokwe. So we'll leave it here. Mr. C, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Gbubemi, thank you so much. You made it all so interesting this morning.
Thank you very much.
And we say thank you to everyone who sent in their messages. We see the messages, and the listener for the morning, Chioma, for raising out, where is my headline? Thank you so much. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. Good morning.
This is Jessica Bombos, and you're listening to the Smooth Breakfast Show.